Hello! Welcome to another episode of Jake's Corner, the show where we talk about issues in the teaching industry. I'm joined today with a controversial figure. He does not have an ed degree yet, but has been very vocal on his views on teaching. Today's guest is, of course, Jake. Thank you for meeting with me today, Jake. Oh yeah. Hello. Always a pleasure, Jake. It's great to be on. So, you are a specialist in making creative assignments for ed classes. Am I right? I think I heard that. Well, I'm not a specialist on creating assignments. I'm just a student. Great. So, we have a question from a listener about something I think you'll be very, very, very passionate about. Yeah, okay. Yeah, throw the question at me. And the question is, how can teachers differentiate instruction within drama classrooms for students with physical disabilities? Yeah, it keeps going. Drama is unique in its requirement for students to be able to use their bodies and speech in a multitude of activities, as I'm sure you know. So how can we integrate differentiated instruction to these students so they can actively participate in the drama classroom? Now, that is a very interesting question. So can I hear your thoughts on this, Mr. Jake? Oh, wow. Wow, what a really great question to talk about here today. Do I have any context for the situation or... Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. Here's a statement we prepared in advance. Can we get our editor Jake on? Can we get the context on screen for a second? There it is. This is what Bree Hadley has said on the issue of disabilities in dramatic arts. In the last 30 years, disabled artists have drawn attention to stereotype representations of disability on stage and on screen, and spoken back to these stereotypes, developing their own distinct aesthetics. The focus in research in the field today has rightly been on the voice agency and authority of artists with lived experiences and disabilities. But is there anything on students in the classroom? Because I love Bree Hadley in her work, but this example is mostly just on society. Is there anything about the school context? Okay. Silly me, of course, Jake. Yeah, here we have some information by Salinger that talks about this oppressive stigma and its effects. Oh yeah, Salinger's great. Can we get that up on the screen for the people at home too? Oh yeah, sure. Sure. Jake, can we get the Salinger quote up on
Students
screen?
targeted by stigma often experience adverse long-term effects, including worsened disability prognosis, reduced likelihood to seek or maintain treatment, diminished confidence, self-esteem, self-efficacy, and overall well-being, impairments in social development, acceptance, and decreased academic.
Yeah, that's definitely some big boy pants stuff right there. Oh, you know it, Jake. So, what can we do as teachers? What can we do in a situation like this? Well, I would actually first like to say that inclusion in the drama classroom and the arts in general is actually a great thing for everyone. Really? Why would you say that, Jake? Well, I actually have some information on a study done on inclusion in the arts, and can we get that on screen for a second? Yeah. Okay, here it is. It is essential that in idealist pursuit of artistic purpose, we do not render disabled students sacrificial lambs on the altar of inclusion, but that we set them up to succeed by recognizing and implementing the adaptations needed to facilitate positive experiences on both sides of teaching/learning process. Oh, wow. Some big words there, Jake. So how would you go about doing this? I would first start with some universal design practices. You know how big of an advocate I've been for these, Jake. I know. Everyone loves universal design. Mm-hmm. I would like to focus on, what I would like to focus on is some universal adaptations that make students who may have a physical disability learn and experience drama. The intention is to get students to learn in the best possible environment. Isn't that what we want for every student? Oh, of course. Everyone benefits from universal design. That's kind of why we call it universal. Damn. Deep stuff, dude. Oh yeah, it's some really deep stuff. So one of the simplest ways, I'm just going to start out here, to help students who may have a disability is actually by educating, which is very fitting since we are teachers in this profession. The Salinger, Rachel Salinger, who you had up earlier, had a detail in their article, and they stated that providing students with information and challenging stereotypes about disabilities, the associated characteristics and treatment, and how to interact with peers with disabilities, teachers may reduce stigma and increase acceptance of diversity in the classroom. Knowing this, a great first step for a simple adaptation is actually just to educate your students in the classroom. And how could you do this in the classroom? Well, to firstly go about this, I would personally open up communication with the students, educating students on disabilities, and there's so many programs that specifically target disability stigma specifically in a classroom setting. Some other simple practices that could help some of these students are some universal inclusion techniques, much like universal design, a great way for all students. Flexible workspaces are something that a student with a physical disability could need and other students could use. People just love having a private space when you need a little bit of time for yourself. Providing assignment options, again, such as presenting assignments and projects in a different way, could help these students. And everyone just loves having a different format. It allows you to really flex your creativity sometimes. For example, having them make the video of their presentation in advance so that they have more time than other people on the project, letting a student with maybe chronic pain or chronic illness do a different type of maybe a movement piece for a project, or letting them write a paper or an essay on something they would be performing instead if they need to work in that format. And those options would allow students who also would want to write a paper instead of performing something, allow that creative freedom, and it doesn't stigmatize someone with disabilities or make them feel lesser because other people have that option as well. And students just love having the option to flex their creative brains. And furthermore, there are actually some really great targeted adaptations that can be made to help these students. I'm going to stop you first. At the end, you just mentioned some targeted adaptations. Can you provide some of these targeted options that you just brought up at the end there? Oh, certainly, Jake. There are a ton, but the two main websites I always like to point out, and I've visited multiple times to help students. The first one is actually the Axis Dance Company. They offer a whole bunch of workshops and digital assembly performances that can be brought to school that specifically go in depth into physical disabilities and how they can dance with their disabilities, and demonstrating what it looks like, and in some adaptations that are made. This is a company based in, I believe, California, and it is a very good resource for, again, education, for people to learn about it, and also for people with disabilities to see themselves succeeding on stage. It is always something that is great for representation for anyone who may be part of an oppressed group. In addition, actually coming out of Australia, it is called the Accessible Arts Organization, and they have a bunch, just so many online resources to help do inclusion in the art space. There are even some videos to be more accepting of those who have a disability on social media, checklists for how to make a space accessible for people with disabilities, which would just be great in general. Besides just for a theater and classroom setting. And they also have a great guidebook they link to called The Art for Everyone, an Inclusive Practice Guide, which is a great resource on how to nurture inclusivity in this art space. Earlier you were talking about the benefits for everyone. But you haven't really mentioned this yet on the podcast. Can you give us some more detail, maybe some experiences or some scenarios that this can really benefit everyone in the classroom, besides those that need these inclusive practices? How can I? Of course, yeah, I can talk about that. There are many reasons for students to be educated on disabilities and how it affects people. At least the example I'm going to use is I believe, it is also from the Salinger article when they presented this. They said that they presented a group called Walk in Our Shoes, and it followed the lives of 4 high school students dealing with various disabilities and the resulting stigma that comes from it. Based on pre and post survey responses of middle school students who attended the play, the production was found to improve participants' behavioral intentions, knowledge, and emotional responses to peers with disabilities. This study displayed strengths in the employment of multiple sources of data for multiple time points. However, there are limitations included the participation of students from one middle school with predominantly multilingual Latino students and the use of only English in the intervention and data collection. Salinger also says that studies have supported the effectiveness of various theater productions about individuals with disabilities and increasing acceptance of peers with disabilities. Yeah, I can kind of understand what you mean. Since we get so used to what we see in like our own perspectives and our own worlds, it really is hard to guess how others feel when they're trying to have that empathy. So really putting yourselves into the shoes and educating yourself on these issues is a really good thing for everyone. Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. This is especially true when you consider most Western critically acclaimed theater practices, productions, playwrights, theaters, etc. all come from a lens that does not encapsulate the identities of these oppressed groups. So by exposing students to these ideas, it helps with the education aspect and eliminating that oppressive and oppressing mindset. Plus, we can all agree that universal design is the best for students and teachers. Of course, universal design, it always just helps students work in the best environment, and teachers can just become better teachers by undergoing these practices. Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming in on the podcast today, Jake. Oh, it was no trouble at all. Thank you so much for having me on Jake's Corner, Jake. In conclusion, the main question I asked at the beginning of this podcast was, how can teachers differentiate instructions within drama classrooms for students with disabilities? And I found through Jake's really insightful dialogue that we just had, I found multiple ways to adapt the theater and the drama classroom into a more inclusive environment. I hope this podcast was able to educate you into ways of not only to adapt a drama classroom, but to a more inclusive environment, but maybe find some things to consider about other subjects or a reflective experience into making your classroom more inclusive in the future. My name is Jake. This was Jake's Corner, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. See you later.